Hi guys, let me give you a quick demo on the pen tool and what I'd like you to do with this butterfly. First, let's start off with a new file, and I'll leave the orientation as portrait. We're going to have to scale down the butterfly when we import it. It's going to be pretty big. So I'm going to do a file and a place. Get that butterfly and place them. So let's zoom out here so we get the whole picture in there. And I'm going to hold the Shift and the Alt at the same time so it'll scale in from the center to get it just right on our artboard. I'm going to open up the layers palette here and show you what's going on with it. When I placed it, I just linked it. I didn't do a template. So this layer 1 here, I'm going to double click on it to get my layer options, and this will be my template layer for the butterfly, and then I'll go ahead and click on template, and it's going to dim the image to about 50%. I'll just go ahead and say OK. What that also does is it locks that layer so I can't draw on it. So I'll need to create a new layer so that we can begin the drawing process, and that layer 2 is going to be where I'm drawing my butterfly here. I'm just going to do a portion of this, maybe this center wing right here. And there's a trick to using the pen tool. What I'm going to do with the pen tool is I'm going to tear it off here so I can use all of the different options that we've got, which is the add anchor point tool, the delete anchor point, and then the convert anchor point. And we'll be jumping back and forth between the direct selection and the regular selection tool as well. But before I start drawing, I want to show you something over here with the ellipse tool. I'm going to drag the ellipse tool out here. And what I'm looking for in this ellipse tool is the number of anchor points that we have going on here. And we can see that we've got 4 anchor points to make this perfect circle. And that's going to create a pretty smooth curve. And that's what you're going to try to look for as you're drawing the wings of this butterfly. You want to look for simple shapes like, how many anchor points would it take to create this thing. So essentially what you want to do is you want to block out, or you want to plot your anchor points. At first pass, especially when you're beginning with the pen tool, I'm not going to try to create the curvature of the line just yet. I'm just going to go ahead and place each anchor point where I think they should be based on the tangency of the curve. So here we go. I'm going to start with this pen tool, and we'll start down here. And again, I'm looking at this like it's a circle, or at least portions of a circle. So I think somewhere right around in here I can get away with an anchor point. Maybe in here, up there. As you can see, it's actually starting to fill in here. I don't want that to happen. So what I'll do with that is I'm going to take this and turn off the fill. Now, I stopped in the middle of the pen tool, which is leaving 2 open anchor points. And that's not a big deal because I can always go back to my pen tool and hover right over top of that open anchor point. You can see a slash down in the bottom right hand side of that pen tool. That's indicating that I'm going to connect to that anchor point and we can keep on moving with it. So I'll click on that, and I've reconnected with that line, that segment, and I'm going to keep just plotting away at some anchor points here. Notice I'm not too concerned that the line is not following it exactly. I'm just basically going through this first pass to see, where these anchor points should be. And as you can see, there's not too many anchor points. When you're first working with the anchor point or the pen tool, most people will come down and try to follow this line exactly and create a whole bunch of anchor points along the way to try to follow that curve, and then go back and try to smooth that curve out. Now, having that many anchor points is going to be nearly impossible to get a nice smooth curve out of it. So that is not the way that I want you guys to do it. So I'm going to come back up here and start working with the next pass of these. Now the tips of the wings here, I'm going to consider those to be corner Bezier anchor points. And that basically means I'm going to break the tangency on both sides of that anchor point so I can control the curve. So I've got my Convert Anchor Point tool. And I'm going to click on that anchor point and I'm going to drag it out. Now it does matter which way that you drag it. See, if I drag it down, you can see that the line actually crosses. So I want to make sure that I'm dragging it up first. And the reason why it crosses is this line is based on how I actually drew the line. So I started down here and went counterclockwise, so that means I've got to drag this up. To break the tangency on it, I just basically grab the handle with my Convert Anchor Point tool and I just kind of swing it over. Now once the tangency's been broken, both sides will act independently, and that's where I'm going to jump over to my Direct Selection tool, grab my anchor point, which is going to allow both handles to show. So I can grab this handle and I can bring it in and kind of move it that way. So I'll do that with all of these anchor points here. I'll just break their tangencies first. And so on. Now I can come back with my direct select. I'm not going to do the whole thing there. Come back with my direct select and I can start moving these points, these handles around so I can get a nice curvature on these things. And once I go through all of these, then I'm going to end up making another pass. And that next pass is going to be converting this from a corner point to just a Bezier point. And again, that's going to be with the Convert Anchor Point tool. I'm going to click and I'm going to drag it out. And I'll drag it just so I get enough of that line shape in there. It's going to be a nice smooth curve. You're going to end up having to come back and readjust some of these. Alright, so I've done a couple in there. Now I'm going to come back with my direct selection. I'll actually zoom in so I can see a little bit of what I'm doing. There we go. Grab this and I can pull this handle in. You can see I'm pulling the handle in to get that nice smooth curve that's right in there, and the handle length is actually different. If I was to drag it kind of left and right, you can see that it changes the curvature on both sides of that anchor point. With that corner Bezier, I can change one side without affecting the other side. So in this case, I'm going to have to adjust both the top anchor point so that I get this part of the curve and this bottom anchor point so that I get this curve. Now, as you can see, I've probably run out of detail. I could probably get it to go slightly that way, but I'm missing that nice curve up there at the top. So I need to bring this portion out a little bit. This is where I'm going to use the Add Anchor Point tool, and I'll just click right in there. Then I can come back to my direct selection and then pull it out just like that. That's going to keep this nice smooth curve that's going on through here. Again, I'll adjust this one so it pulls it back in, and so forth. And if you do find yourself putting in too many anchor points, then you can always come back and use the Delete Anchor Point tool. For example, if I had maybe one here and one there, and I obviously do not need both of those, so I could come back and I could use the Delete Anchor Point tool and click on it, and it deletes the anchor point. Now that is different from selecting an anchor point with the direct selection tool and then using the delete key. If I use the delete key to delete the anchor point, you can see that it opens up that segment, and that's not what we want. We don't want an open shape there. So we'll use this delete anchor point tool to get rid of that. And that's basically the gist of getting through the ButterFly, is to plot those points first and then start converting the tips into your corner Beziers, and then come back through and then convert these lower points into regular Bezier. And the idea is to get these nice smooth curves in here with not a lot of anchor points, and you're going to get a really slick look out of it. And once you get to a certain point, you always want to check your work and see what's going on with it, and that you can simply do that by toggling the visibility on your template, and you'll be able to see these nice smooth curves that are happening in here. So the idea for the entire assignment is to draw the entire butterfly, including these inside shapes. And we'll just leave these inside shapes as white, or you could color them however you want. You can color the black part however you want as well. Later on, we'll figure out how to actually poke holes in the wings so that you could actually see through it. These would be compound paths.